Hey, welcome again to our Tech Choice UI UX design track. And this is module 2, where we'll be talking about UX discovery, which is user experience discovery. So, in this module, we'll be talking about UX discovery, the design thinking process, qualitative and quantitative research process, and research report. Okay, first off, what is UX discovery? Discovery is a preliminary phase in UX design process that involves researching the problem, framing the problems to be solved, and gathering enough evidence and initial direction on what to do next. Discoveries do not involve testing hypothesis or solution. It's basically the part of the project where the design team gets to learn all about the product, the potential users, and the business who plans to sell the products to them. Based on those learnings, the design team will be able to make recommendations about how to build that product for that business and those particular users, or more simply put, when you know what you're dealing with and what you want to make, then you can enact a solid strategy and a roadmap to do it. Okay, what is the purpose of UX discovery? During the discovery track, the objectives are to first of all understand the users. The next is to understand their basic needs, and followed by articulating the design problems and developing a clear vision of success. To achieve the following, we'll apply the design thinking process. And that leads us to a question where we ask ourselves that what is actually the design thinking process? The design thinking in general is an iterative process in which we seek to understand the user, basically challenge assumptions and redefine problems in an attempt to identify alternative strategies and solutions that might not be instantly apparent with our initial level of understanding. Also, design thinking provides a solution-based approach to solving problems. It is a way of thinking and working as well as collection of hands-on methods. Design thinking revolves around a deep interest in developing an understanding of the people for whom we are designing the product or service. It is also an human-centered approach to problem solving with the focus basically on the user. Design thinking enables product designers to empathize with the users, define the problems from the view of the user, brainstorm, prototype, and test these ideas that can address the user's problems. The design thinking is both an ideology and a process that seeks to solve complex problems in a user-centric way. It focuses on achieving practical results and solutions that are technically feasible, that is, they can be developed into functional products or processes. They are economically viable, which means the business can afford to implement them, and also desirable by the user. They meet the human's needs. And design thinking process goes through 5 stages, and these 5 stages are the empathy stage, the define stage, the ideation stage, the prototyping stage, and the testing stage. The design thinking process is actually not a linear process. So you can go from empathy to define, then you ideate, then you prototype, then you think about new features you want to add. That's an ideation process. Then you go back, you test, then you go back to prototyping and all of that. So it doesn't follow a linear process. In this first stage, we have empathy. During the empathy stage, you will engage with and observe your target audience. The aim of this step is basically to paint a clear picture of who your end users are, what challenges they are facing, and what needs and expectations must be met. In order to build user empathy, you need to conduct surveys, interviews, and observations sessions. The first stage of the design thinking process is to gain an empathic understanding of the problem you're trying to solve. Empathizing with your users. Empathizing with your user actually means walking in their shoes in order to feel their pain and frustration. Good designers never start by trying to solve the problem given to them. They start by trying to understand what the real issues are. Then, what is actually done in the empathy stage? First off, you plan your research, then you interview and observe your users, and while conducting user surveys, and you document these findings. Then the next stage is the define stage. During the define stage, information gathered from the user is analyzed, which is from the empathy stage, and synthesized to identify core user problems and pain points. Based on what you have learned in the empathy stage, the next step is to define a clear problem statement. Your problem statement sets out the specific challenge you will address. It will guide the entire design process from here on out, giving you a fixed goal to focus on and helping to keep the user in mind at all times. When framing your problem statement, you focus on the user's needs rather than those of the business. A good problem statement is human-centered, broad enough for creativity, yet specific enough to provide guidance and direction. And we'll talk about what we do in the define stage. In the define stage, we identify user pain points, we establish clear problem statements, we create user persona, we identify problem solving opportunities. In the third stage, which is the ideation stage, this is where designers bring up as many solutions as possible to the pain points, and these problem statements identified in the define phase. With a clear problem statement in mind, you now aim to come up with as many ideas and potential solutions as possible. The ideation phase gets you thinking outside the box and exploring new angles. By focusing on quantity of ideas rather than quality, you are more likely to free your mind and stumble upon innovations. During dedicated ideation stage, you will use a range of different ideation techniques such as brainstorming, reverse thinking, and worst possible ideas. In this stage, it involves brainstorming, feature ideations, and features prioritization. Then this leads us to the fourth stage, which is the prototyping stage. And prototyping is basically the process of producing a scaled down version of a product, a simulation, or a sample version, which enables you to test your ideas and designs before investing time and money into developing the product. This happens after having narrowed down your ideas to a selected few. You will now turn them into prototypes or scaled down versions of the product or concept you want to test. The prototyping stage gives you something tangible that can be tested on real users. This is crucial in maintaining a user-centric approach. Depending on what you are testing, prototypes can take various forms, from basic paper models to interactive digital prototypes. When creating your prototypes, have a clear goal in mind, know exactly what you want to prototype and what your prototype represents, and therefore you test. In the prototype stage, the team produces scaled down version of a product. You make paper sketches and low fidelity designs, which is the second iteration, where we have the high fidelity design, which is the third iteration. In the prototyping stage, we have paper sketch. Paper sketch at the beginning of prototypes helps us consider different options before choosing a visual direction. Sketching can help designers quickly visualize design ideas in an efficient and low cost way. So it is an essential skill for a UX UI designer. Sketching can be used in nearly any stage in the product design process. drawing out brainstormed ideas, recording every haha moment, and building prototypes. Prototyping is a way to give ideas a presence so that we can test it out or put it in front of people to see if it has value. Then we move on to the low fidelity prototypes. Low fidelity prototyping is a quick way to transform high level design concepts into testable prototypes. It is an incomplete version of a product with some resemblance to the final designs. Low fidelity prototypes helps us to quickly test product functionalities with users. Then this leads us to high fidelity prototypes. A high fidelity prototype is a computer based interactive representation of the product with appearance and functionality as similar as possible to the actual product. Then this leads us to the fifth stage of the design thinking process, which is the testing stage. During testing, designers present versions of their products to potential users. Testing enables designers to validate their ideas and help them spot areas for improvement. The testing phase enables you to see where your prototype works well and where it needs improving. Based on user feedback, you can make changes and improvements before you spend time and money developing and implementing your solution. How is it done? You run user testing sessions where you observe your target users as they interact with your prototype. You may also gather verbal feedback with everything you learn from the testing phase. You make changes to your designs and come up with a completely new idea altogether. The steps in testing: you validate your sketch with ideas from your brainstorming session. You test your low fidelity prototype with your user, that is, you focus on user interaction. Then you test your high fidelity designs with your users. This time you're focusing on the user interaction and the visual details of the product. And this module will be continued in the next video. Thank you.